This is an assault weapon. And I know what you're saying. You're saying, no, it's not. It's a spatula. But in 2010, a spatula and other kitchen utensils were used by a Utah mother to bludgeon her daughter to death. So this was a weapon. It was used to assault. So it's not inaccurate for me to call it an assault weapon. However, it's absolutely ridiculous because millions of people use a spatula every day to cook their food. So what am I talking about? I'm talking about words. I'm talking about language. I'm talking about labels. Labels are not value neutral. They all have some type of value associated to them. And people that create messages, marketing people, politicians, media, know how important these labels are. They know how powerful labels can be. So there's a lot of thought put into naming something. But specifically when we see that they're trying to play around with the label, know that they're playing around with your emotions. So let me give you some examples of labels that are used in politics, specifically policy. So let's go back to before the Iraq War and the great label that the Bush administration came up with. It was weapons of mass destruction. And mass destruction had a particular emotion attached to it at that time because we had just come through September 11th and we knew what mass destruction was. So when we heard that, weapons of mass destruction, we can make the connection that there's some guy in a faraway place that wants to use weapons of mass destruction against us. So it has a certain emotional connection to us. And the people that come up with these words, they know this. This is why they come up with these words. Let's also look at No Child Left Behind. I mean, how do you argue against that, right? Are you the guy that says, yes, I want to leave children behind? The Obama administration's the Affordable Care Act. I mean, what do you say? No, I don't want care to be affordable. The war on drugs. I mean, what's the opposition? I want to hug it out? So these labels make it very difficult to have a conversation, a discussion about, what the item is. They're typically, a lot of these labels are used to divide us. They're not used to bring us together. And it's important to note that. And what I'm seeing going on right now with gun policy, I mean, that's been going on for a very, very, very long time. And one thing I notice a trend with it is the labels make it very hard to have a conversation about violence, about what makes people turn to violence, ultimately resulting in murder. Let's get to the problem. But these labels prevent us from talking about that. So for an example, let's talk about semi-automatic rifles. And originally, and we still do call those semi-automatic rifles, but they've had different labels attached to them. Assault rifle, assault weapon, weapon of mass murder, and weapon of war. And let's just talk about weapon of war right now. So when you see a label change, you need to ask yourself 3 questions. What's the value of the new label? Why did that label change? And what are the implications for that label changing? So what are the values of that new label? Weapons of war. What kind of emotions does war bring out? Violence, fear, people die, something we want to avoid. War is a last resort. It's undesirable. Most people are against it. So when you see all these emotions that war brings out, and then you see weapon applied to it, you can assume that that weapon is going to bring all those emotions to you. So it's something to be afraid of. Why now? Why change the label right now? Well, it's pretty clear to me. If you are trying to promote a policy that says it's going to make you safer, the first thing you have to do is convince you that you're not safe. So when you take an object, an item like a semi-automatic rifle, and you attach this label to it, and that label carries all of these emotions like fear, like it's undesirable, then that's the first step for a politician to come in and say, I can make you safer. But they created the illusion that you weren't safe in the first place. So what are the implications of changing that label? Well, first, weapon of war limits the use of that item to a very narrow focus. So you're saying you can't use it for self-defense. You can't use it for sporting purposes. You can't use it for hunting purpose, for competitive purposes, for just target shooting. So it limits its focus outside of anything except those emotions that you've attached to it. Second, it prevents us from discussing anything other than the focus of the label, the tool, the item. So it makes it very difficult to have a conversation about what makes people turn to violence, because that label is focusing only on this tool with a very specific function. Yet, that item is used very little in crime. Third, who wages war? I mean, historically, who has waged war? The state has waged war. So by giving it the label weapon of war, in essence, that label is saying no civilian should have access to this item. This item is a weapon of the state. And that's something to think about when you're relabeling items. There's a lot of consequences. These are extremely powerful tools. And these people that come up with these labels, they know it. And they're trying to pull at our emotions. They're trying to pull us in a certain direction. And it prevents us from having an overall meaningful conversation about what the root causes of violence are. This is fertilizer. This is a box cutter. Timothy McVeigh used this. The 9/11 hijackers used this. We didn't relabel these because we know it was the people that were responsible.